Story 1. The Craigslist property photo job that turned into a nightmare. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sharing something chilling, something real. Not a fictional creepypasta, not an urban legend. This is a true story sent in by someone who lived through it. Honestly, it's one of the most terrifying accounts of online danger I've ever come across. So grab a seat, maybe lock your doors. And let me tell you story 1. A 19-year-old woman from the Pacific Northwest, quiet, anxious, and socially isolated, was desperate for extra cash. Her hours at her regular job had been slashed, and she was struggling to make ends meet. With no friends to turn to and no special skills, she found herself scrolling through Craigslist, hoping for a simple side gig. You know, the kind of thing anyone can do? Data entry, dog walking, maybe mystery shopping? That's when she saw it. An ad offering $50 to take photos of a property. All she needed was a decent phone, something above an iPhone 12. She had an iPhone 14. Perfect. The job was supposed to take just an hour or two. Easy money, no experience needed. It seemed harmless, maybe even a little boring. She emailed the poster. Within minutes, she got a text back. The man on the other end said she seemed like the perfect fit and invited her over that same day. No interview, no questions, just an immediate invitation. That should have been red flag number 1. She hesitated. She even posted on Reddit's or Twaxcromomes, asking if it was a dumb idea to go alone. The responses were unanimous. Don't go. Take someone with you. But she didn't listen. She deleted the post, rationalizing that she was being paranoid. After all, it was just photos. What could go wrong? She drove about 20 minutes outside of town, deep into a forested area. The house was small, run down, surrounded by trees. Nothing screamed danger at first glance. When the man opened the door, he looked normal, mid-50s, unremarkable. No tattoos, no wild eyes, no overt signs of menace. He invited her inside. And that's when the unease began. The house was completely empty. No furniture, no rugs, just dust, dirt, and silence. She asked where she should start taking photos. He dodged the question. Instead, he started making small talk, personal questions. Where she lived. If she had family, if she was lonely, her anxiety spiked. She kept the conversation going, trying to stay polite, but the vibe was off. Then he started staring at her, not a casual glance. A long, intense, unnerving stare that made her skin crawl. She dropped her phone. When he picked it up, he held on to it too long, just a few seconds longer than normal, but it was enough to make her heart race. Then came the touch. While taking photos in the master bedroom, he brushed her face with his hand. Nice skin, he said. That was it. Her blood turned to ice. This wasn't about photos. This was never about photos. She made a split-second decision. I need to leave now. She mumbled something about her mom needing her. Turned toward the door, only for him to grab her arm. Hard, she still has the photo on her phone taken right after the ordeal, showing the deep bruises on her forearm. She says it felt like he was trying to snap her arm in half. But she wasn't defenseless. She had a small knife, a gift from her mom, who was paranoid about her daughter's safety. Her mom would have never let her go if she knew. Without thinking, she pulled it out and stabbed him in the arm. The blade released with the push of a button. He let go instantly, swung at her with the knife, but she was already running out the door, down the path, to her car. She drove until she reached a gas station, her hands shaking, her heart pounding. She called the police. They took her seriously. She went in, gave a full statement, and officers searched the property. The house was abandoned. No utilities, no recent activity, just dust, and in the basement, a pack of zip ties. No sign of the man. The report was filed. But he was never found. She's called for updates over the years. Nothing. No leads. No arrests. No closure. And here's the most heartbreaking part. She's never told anyone. Not even her mom. She kept it buried until now. She sounds unbothered typing this out, but she's not. That was the first time anything like that ever happened to her. And since that day, she struggled to leave her house. Anxiety, fear, hypervigilance, the trauma lingers. She decided to share this story as a way to get it off her chest, because it plagues her thoughts. The what-ifs. The eye should have listened. The image of that empty house. The feel of his grip. And to all of you watching this is a wake-up call. Craigslist isn't just for furniture and concert tickets. It's a wild west of human behavior. And predators know that desperate people are more likely to ignore red flags. She went alone. She deleted the warning. She ignored the gut feeling, and she barely made it out. So please never go to a stranger's house alone. Never delete your safety questions. And if someone makes you uncomfortable, leave. No job is worth your life. This wasn't just a bad date. This wasn't awkward small talk. This was a setup. A trap. Now, she survived because she fought back. But not everyone does. If you're feeling desperate, reach out. Ask for help. There are resources. There are people who care. And if you're thinking of doing something like this, don't. Not for $50. Not for $500. Because some people don't want your photos. They want you. Stay safe, friends. Lock your doors. Trust your instincts. And never, ever ignore the warning signs. This story stays with you, and it should, because it's real. It could have ended so much worse. Story 2. The woman who danced in the fog. A real nighttime encounter. It still haunts me. It was late winter in a small college town. The kind of place that goes eerily quiet during winter break when most students have gone home, leaving the streets empty and the nights unnaturally still. Our storyteller, a woman in her late 20s, lived alone in a modest duplex on a quiet residential street just a few blocks from campus. She wasn't a student or faculty, just someone trying to live a peaceful life. But that peace was shattered one Wednesday night when she was jolted awake by a sound outside. Not a car, not a dog, not the wind, but a deep, unnatural wailing. It wasn't the cry of someone in grief or pain. It was something more theatrical, almost rehearsed. A long, drawn-out woo. Woo that echoed through the darkness like a ghost trying too hard to be convincing. It didn't sound panicked, didn't beg for help. It felt performative, staged like someone was impersonating a spirit. Her anxiety spiked. She got up, walked to the window, and peered into the night, but saw nothing. No figures, no movement. Just the faint glow of a distant streetlight and the thick silence of an empty neighborhood. The wailing grew distant and faded away, and after a few minutes, all was quiet. She went back to bed, unsettled but exhausted, telling herself it was probably a prank or a recording, maybe even her imagination. But the very next night, it happened again. And this time it was different. Thursday night, she was awakened not by wailing, but by a rhythmic sound. Thud, thud, scrape. It sounded like someone shoveling snow, but there was no snow. She got up, looked out the window, and saw a dense fog rolling in. And across the street, standing in the mist, was a woman. At first she thought the woman was wearing some strange hat, bulky, dark, and oddly shaped. But as her eyes adjusted, she realized it wasn't a hat, it was hair, long matted, filthy hair, down to the woman's waist, twisted into a single, grotesque mass that looked like a giant, glistening hairball. The woman stood with her shoulders hunched forward, arms crossed tightly behind her back, like a figure skater or ballerina in a starting pose. Then, without warning, she began to move, 2 heavy stomps. Then a long, smooth glide, as if she were on ice, but there was no ice, no slick surface, no explanation. And yet, she glided effortlessly across the pavement, spinning and turning with unnatural grace. Each time she moved, the scrape sound matched her shoe against the ground. The storyteller stood frozen, watching from behind the glass. It was almost hypnotic, the way this frail, elderly-looking woman moved with such precision and balance like a professional dancer. But there was nothing beautiful about it. It was wrong, unnatural, the kind of movement you'd expect from a puppet on strings, not a living person. After a few minutes, the woman stopped. She crouched down dramatically like a sprinter at the starting line, leaning forward, fingertips lightly touching the ground. She stayed that way for over a minute, perfectly still, silhouetted in the fog. The silence was unbearable. Then slowly, she rose, turned her back, got up on her tiptoes, full ballerina stance, arms stretched out like wings. And then she broke into a rapid tiptoeing motion, fast, frantic, almost cartoonish, like a character scurrying away in an old horror film. The storyteller said she could hear the classic scamper sound effect in her head, and just like that, she danced into the fog, vanished. No footsteps, no echo, no trace. She never came back. The storyteller didn't just see her once. She saw her 3 nights in a row. Each night at exactly 2:17 a.m., the same sequence. The wailing, the stomping, the gliding, the crouch, the tiptoe escape. Each night the fog rolled in like clockwork. Each night the woman appeared, performed her eerie dance, and disappeared. The storyteller started documenting it, writing it down, checking the time, even trying to record it. But every time she picked up her phone, the woman stopped. As if she knew. On the 3rd night, she called the police. They came, looked around, found nothing. No footprints, no disturbed ground, no signs of anyone living nearby. No reports of missing persons matching the description. They told her it was probably a homeless person with mental health issues and to keep her doors locked. But here's the thing. The woman didn't show up the next night, or the night after, or ever again. It was like she appeared, performed her ritual, and then simply vanished. No explanation, no closure, and the storyteller. She still lives in that apartment. She still hears noises at night. She still checks her windows. But she hasn't seen the woman since. And yet she feels her. She says sometimes when the fog rolls in, she gets this overwhelming sense of being watched, of being known, like the woman isn't gone, just waiting, waiting for the right night, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to look out the window again. Now, most stories like this have a logical explanation, a stalker, a prank, a misunderstanding. But this one doesn't. Because if it was just a disturbed person dancing in the fog, why did she stop so suddenly? Why vanish without a trace? Why move with such unnatural precision? Some believe in spirits that mimic human behavior, entities that feed on fear, or watchers that observe and learn. Could this woman have been something like that? Or was she just a lost soul, trapped in her own private nightmare? We'll never know. But one thing is certain, this wasn't random. This was intentional, and the fact that it stopped so abruptly, that's almost more terrifying than if it had continued. Because it suggests that she chose to leave, which means she could choose to come back. So if you live in a quiet town, if you're alone at night and you hear something strange outside, don't ignore it. Don't assume it's nothing, because sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones that break in. They're the ones that dance outside your window and then disappear, like they were never there at all. Stay aware. Stay safe, whatever you do. Don't look too closely at the fog. Story 3. The Slurpee run that turned into a carjacking. A witnessed nightmare. This one hits different. It's not about ghosts or eerie dances in the fog, but the raw, sudden horror of real human evil witnessed firsthand by a 14 or 15-year-old girl who saw a woman get run over by her own stolen car in broad daylight outside 7-Eleven, all while she stood there frozen holding a Slurpee. It was many years ago during a family move, when her mother's cousin and his adult sons were helping paint their new house, and after a long day of work, someone suggested grabbing Slurpees from a nearby 7-Eleven. A small joy on a hot summer day. She and one of her older cousins volunteered to go, and the trip started normally. They drove, picked their favorite flavors, mixed cherry and blue raspberry, laughed about the perfect straw-to-ice ratio, and walked back out with their cold, dripping cups, till she heard a woman scream, "Help me." She turned and saw a middle-aged man wrestling with an older woman, maybe in her 60s, violently snatching her car keys before jumping into the driver's seat and backing up, while the woman was still on the ground, her legs trapped under the vehicle, and didn't he stop? Didn't he reverse, just kept going, dragging her body as he sped away? She stood frozen, Slurpee in hand, heart pounding, unable to move or scream, watching in horror as the car disappeared down the street. Her cousin snapped into action, calling 911 and staying with the injured woman, while she, still in shock, repeated the license plate number over and over in her head, a detail she'd been taught to remember in emergencies. And when the woman couldn't recall her own plate, she was the one who gave it to the police, a crucial act that likely helped locate the stolen car about 30 miles, 48 kilometers away. But she never found out what happened to the man, the woman, or if he was ever caught. The 7-Eleven has since closed, replaced by a cell phone store, and every time she drives past that spot, she relives the moment. The scream, the crunch of tires over bone, the helplessness, still dreams about it. Not every night, but often enough. And in those dreams, she is still frozen. Still holding that Slurpee, still doing nothing, even though she did something. She stayed, she helped, she gave the plate, yet she carries guilt. Survivor's guilt for not acting faster, for not screaming, for being too scared. This story isn't about a monster under the bed. It's about the monsters who walk among us, who strike without warning in the middle of the day. It's in a public place with witnesses and vanish just as quickly. It could have been anyone. It could have been you. That woman didn't do anything wrong. She was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And some man, for no known reason, decided to steal her car and didn't care that she was still attached to it. We don't know his motive, desperation, mental illness, addiction. But we do know this. Evil doesn't always knock. Sometimes it happens at a 7-Eleven with kids holding Slurpees, and that's what makes it so terrifying. Because it wasn't supernatural, it wasn't a home invasion, it was real life. And real life can be the scariest thing of all. So if you've ever witnessed a crime like this, something you couldn't stop, something that still haunts you, know this. You re not weak for being scared. You re not guilty for not acting fast enough. You survived, and sometimes that is the bravest thing you can do. This story is a chilling reminder that violence can erupt in the most ordinary moments. And the next frozen drink run could be the last normal moment you ever have. Story 4. The bra store encounter. When a simple shopping trip turned terrifying. This one cuts deep because it didn't happen in a dark alley or at night. It happened in broad daylight inside a crowded lingerie store during a routine shopping trip that turned into a moment of pure unprovoked violence that still haunts our storyteller years later. She was 18 at the time, a petite girl standing just 14, painfully shy. Incredibly non-confrontational. The kind of person who apologizes when someone else bumps into her, who avoids eye contact, who walks fast through parking lots out of habit, not paranoia. She wasn't alone. Her best friend, just as small and anxious as she was with her. And they had a ritual every few months. Go bra shopping. Both were overly endowed, as she puts it, and struggled to find properly fitting bras anywhere except in summers. A well-known lingerie chain in the UK where the sales were decent and the styles actually worked for them. This particular day in November 2017 was no different. They were browsing, laughing quietly, flipping through racks, just trying to grab a few cheap ones while they could. The store was small, maybe 15 by 18 feet, brightly lit, with a few other customers scattered around. Nothing felt off. But the moment they stepped inside, a woman suddenly stepped in front of her, finger jammed into her chest, and demanded in a thick Slavic accent, "Spit the gum out." She froze, assuming this woman was an employee, maybe a manager enforcing a store rule. So without thinking, she mumbled, "I'm really sorry," and rushed back outside to spit out her gum and throw it away. When she came back in, heart pounding, expecting to be scolded again, that's when she realized the truth. This woman wasn't staff. She was a customer, and she hadn't just happened to be near the door. She had positioned herself there, waiting. In hindsight, it should have been obvious. No employee would ever act like that. Not if they wanted to keep their job. But fear clouds judgment, and our storyteller just kept her head down, holding her breath, hoping the woman wouldn't notice her again. For a while, it seemed like she was in the clear. She and her friend moved deeper into the store, browsing quietly, trying to avoid her. But the shop was tiny. Eventually, she found herself near the sale rack by the door, right where the woman was standing with her stroller, or what they call a pushchair in the UK. But it wasn't holding a baby. It was full of plastic carrier bags, double-bagged, tied shut, like whatever was inside, she was protecting it like it was priceless. When our storyteller leaned slightly to check the discount sign, she was still about 3 feet away, but that was enough. The woman ran around the stroller like a sprinter off the blocks, came up behind her and hit her in the face. Not a slap. Not a shove, but somewhere between a slap and a punch, hard and sudden and shocking. All she knew was that it hurt, and the woman hissed in her ear, "Watch the personal space." And in that moment of pure shock and survival instinct, she did the unthinkable. She apologized. Yes, after being assaulted in public, she said sorry. She regrets it now. But at the time, she was in survival mode. She didn't want to provoke the woman, didn't want things to get worse. Didn't know what she'd done to deserve it, so she assumed that if she just stayed quiet, it would end. She turned and ran, grabbed her friend's hand, pulled her to the back of the store, where there was a half wall separating the main area from the adult toys section, just enough to hide behind. They stood there, shaking, whispering, "She just hit me. She just hit me." Her friend could see the rest of the store. After about a minute, she whispered, "She's gone." Our storyteller let out a breath she didn't even know she was holding. "Can we stay here for a while?" she asked. "I'm scared she'll be waiting outside." They waited 5, then 10 minutes. Eventually, they went back to the front to check out. Said S, when the cashier dropped a bomb, "That woman S been in here for 30 minutes? What did she say to you?" Our storyteller told her everything. The gum, the hit, the hissed, warning. The cashier's face changed. "She hit you." And then, almost apologetically, "If I had known that, I would have called security. I'm so sorry." Our storyteller just smiled and shrugged. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine, and she knows that now. But back then, she didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to deal with police, didn't want to relive it. She paid for her brass, left the store, looked around, no sign of the woman, and asked her friend, "Can we just go home now?" They hadn't finished shopping, but she was done. When she got home, her parents urged her to report it. She called the non-emergency line. The response? Cold. "Well, what do you expect us to do about it?" Unless she went back to Ann Summers and requested the security footage, which she wasn't even sure existed, they wouldn't do anything. It's been over 3 years and she still thinks about it. She's convinced the woman was likely homeless, possibly on drugs, that the stroller held everything she owned, or maybe drugs. That's the only explanation that makes sense. Because normal people, Dan T just hit strangers for leaning 3 feet away from their stroller. But here's what makes this story so terrifying. It wasn't a dark alley. It wasn't late at night. It wasn't a sketchy part of town. It was a lingerie store in the middle of the day with witnesses, and no one stopped it. The cashier didn't intervene. No other customer stepped in. Security didn't exist or wasn't used. And the police, they didn't care. This wasn't just an assault. It was a breakdown of safety. It could have happened to anyone. Maybe you've had a moment like this. A stranger snaps at you for no reason. A person invades your space. You feel that spike of fear, that this could go bad feeling. You walk away shaken, wondering, asterisk, what if I had fought back? What if I had screamed? What if she followed me? That's the aftermath. It's a lingering dread. It's the knowledge that it could have been worse. Because this woman didn't just hit her. She targeted her. She waited. She watched. She chose her moment. And when she struck, it was with intent. This wasn't random. It was personal to the attacker. And that's what makes it so scary. So if you've ever been in a situation like this, where you froze, where you apologized, where you just wanted to survive, know this. You're not weak. You did what you had to do. But also, please, don't let it go. Speak up. Report it, because the next person might not be so lucky. This story isn't about a monster under the bed. It's about the monsters who walk into stores, who look normal, who stand in strollers full of secrets, who snap. For no reason at all. Stay aware. Stay close to someone. And if someone invades your space, don't apologize. Leave. Because your safety isn't rude. It's necessary. Story 6. The gas station encounter. A late-night refuel that turned into a terrifying stalking. It was 11 p.m. on a cold night, and our storyteller, a woman in her 20s, had just finished work and realized she was running dangerously low on gas. She hadn't made time to fill up earlier, so she pulled into a 24-hour gas station, hoping for a quick, safe stop. The lot wasn't empty. A few cars were at the pumps, which gave her a fleeting sense of relief. At least I'm not alone, she thought. She went inside to pay with cash, then returned to her car to start fueling. As the tank filled, she leaned back, scrolling on her phone to pass the time. Anything to avoid the eerie silence of a nighttime gas station. But then movement caught her eye. A man was walking suspiciously around the front of her car. She glanced up, and their eyes met. He approached and asked if she had any change for gas. Hey. She shook her head and said, "No, sorry." He accepted it casually, then said something that sent a chill down her spine. "Hey, do you want me to remove your gas pump for you?" It was such an odd, overly helpful question. No one just offers that. Her tank wasn't even full yet, and she knew it. She quickly replied, "I'm good, thanks," trying to sound polite but firm. At that moment, the pump clicked. Her tank was full. She knew he knew. And instead of walking away, he acted fidgety, then disappeared behind her car. She stayed frozen in the driver's seat, heart pounding, trying not to look too obviously afraid, but subtly checking her mirrors. He was out of sight. The lot had emptied. No other cars, no staff outside. Just her alone, with a man she didn't know, somewhere behind her vehicle. She didn't want to start her car yet. The pump was still in. She waited, hoping another customer would pull in, giving her a chance to leave safely. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Her fight-for-flight response was screaming at her. It was freezing, and she hadn't started the engine. She had no plan, no idea where he'd gone. Then, finally, she saw him, walking toward his truck parked 2 pumps away, but he didn't get in. He just lingered near it, pretending to do something. The second his back was turned, she acted. She yanked the pump out, slammed the gas cap shut, and turned the key. The engine roared to life, but he saw her, and he started walking toward her again. "Oh, hey," he said, "you're really beautiful." She nodded quickly, trying to seem unbothered, but her hands were shaking. Then he said the words that made her blood freeze. "I T look like a serial killer, do I?" And the look in his eyes, wild, intense, almost proud, told her everything. Asterisk, "Yeah, bro, you actually do." She didn't wait. She slammed the car into drive and sped out of the lot, gripping the wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. She didn't stop shaking for miles. She drove straight home, locked every door, and called a friend to stay on the phone with her. She replayed the moment over and over, the fake helpfulness, the way he waited, the unnatural calm. He hadn't been there for gas. He'd been waiting for her. And the worst part? He knew she was alone. He knew when she'd be vulnerable, and he tested her. This wasn't random, it was a setup. A predator scouting, probing, seeing how far he could go. And if she hadn't left when she did, if she'd hesitated, if she'd been polite. The outcome could have been unthinkable. She never went back to that station. She changed her routine. She filled up during the day. She never refueled at night alone again. And to this day, she wonders, was he just a creep with a bad pickup line? Or was he someone who's done this before? Someone who's escalated? She'll never know. But one thing is certain, that gas station, that night, that man, it wasn't about gas. It was about control. It's about fear, about finding someone alone and testing their fear. So if you're ever refueling late at night and someone approaches you with an odd request, don't be polite. Don't engage. Get in your car, lock the doors, and leave fast. Because sometimes the most dangerous people don't break in. They walk up, smile, and ask if you need help. And by then, it might already be too late. Story 7. The Target Encounter. When a trip to buy diapers turned into a terrifying kidnapping attempt, this one will ignite every protective instinct you have. Because it's not about a stranger in a dark alley, but about a calculated, chilling attempt to abduct a child in broad daylight, inside one of the busiest stores in America, Target. And it was witnessed by a mother who will never forget the moment she realized 2 strangers were trying to steal her son right from her shopping cart. What? Let me tell you story 7. It was several years ago. Our storyteller was a 35-year-old blonde, an Italian-American woman with 2-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. She describes them as exceptionally cute and says her son, in particular, drew a lot of attention because of his strawberry blonde hair and giant blue eyes. Dat. She decided to run a quick errand. Diapers, wipes, the usual. She parked slightly farther from the entrance because she likes to be near the cart return area, and there weren't many carts in that row. As she got out of her car, another couple pulled in nearby. Their son looked about the same age as her twins. The dad was a huge man, bear-like, with a thick beard and arms like tree trunks, and they exchanged polite smiles. It felt normal, safe, just another family out shopping. But as she walked through Target, she started to notice something odd. 2 couples, not the ones she'd seen in the parking lot, seemed to be following her. They weren't speaking English, and she couldn't place their nationality, but they kept showing up in the same aisles. At first she brushed it off. Asterisk, maybe they're buying the same things. Maybe it's a coincidence. But by the time she got in line at checkout, the feeling was undeniable. One of the couples was now directly behind her. The other was in front. And when they finished paying, they didn't move, just stood there, blocking the way. Then without warning, the woman from the couple behind her leaned completely into her cart, placing herself between the mother and her son, who was sitting in the open part of the cart. Her body was practically resting on both sides of the cart. A massive physical barrier. She blocked the mother's line of sight completely. The son was gone from view. She started inching closer, crowding the mother, who had her hands on her daughter in the seat but couldn't reach her son. She asked the woman to back up, politely, repeatedly. "Excuse me, please move, back up." But the woman just responded in her native language, refusing to move, ignoring every gesture and plea. The mother tried to lean around her to grab her son, to throw him onto the conveyor belt, anything to get him away. But she was trapped. The other couple had moved in on her other side, blocking her in. The 16-year-old cashier was frozen, useless, even as the mother started yelling, "Call security! Call security!" She was screaming, desperate, but no one helped. Minutes passed. She couldn't check out. She couldn't reach her child. She couldn't even see him. And in that moment, she knew. This wasn't random. This was a setup. A coordinated attempt to isolate her, block her, and take her son. Finally, in a surge of primal rage, she grabbed her cart and smashed it as hard as she could into the woman. The impact startled her enough to create space, just enough for the mother to lunge and grab her hysterical son. The woman started yelling, but it was too late. The damage was done. The plan had failed. And that when the bear-like man from earlier, the dad with the beard, stepped in. He'd seen everything. He rushed over with his family, shoved the other couple away, and escorted her and her twins back to her car. He didn't just walk her out. He and his wife followed her onto the highway for a stretch, just to make sure they weren't being followed. She never filed a police report. She was too shaken, too focused on getting her kids home. But she replayed it over and over. The coordination, the silence, the way they blocked her in. The woman leaning so far into the cart, it was clearly intentional. This wasn't a cultural misunderstanding. This wasn't a rude shopper. This was a predatory attempt to snatch a child in the middle of a crowded store. And the worst part, it almost worked. Because she was polite. Because she didn't escalate immediately. Because she gave them the benefit of the doubt. So if you're a parent, a caregiver, anyone with a child in public, trust your gut. If someone invades your space, if they block your view, if they won't move, don't be polite. Fight, yell, smash the cart. Do whatever it takes, because predators don't always wear masks. Sometimes they wear smiles. And they wait in Target. Story 8. The midnight trip to the adult store, a terrifying encounter with a persistent stalker. This one is about the paralyzing fear of being followed when you're alone in a dark, isolated place, and the split-second decisions that can mean the difference between safety and disaster. It happened around 2015 to 2016, when our storyteller, a woman in her mid-20s, was living with someone who worked the graveyard shift, meaning she was often home alone at night. One evening, feeling lonely and in need of comfort, she decided to drive to a 24-hour adult store in her mid-sized suburban town, a place she'd been to before, though never this late. The downtown area was small, mostly bars and restaurants clustered near the freeway, and her apartment was just 10 minutes away. She parked in the dimly lit lot behind the store, which had multiple entry points, and felt eerily exposed. As she walked toward the entrance on the street side, she passed a man standing alone, smoking a cigarette at 1:00 a.m. He said hi, and she gave a quiet, nervous reply without making eye contact. He was dressed oddly, shaved head, long white t-shirt, shorts past his knees, tube socks. Nothing overtly threatening, but something about him felt off. The moment she passed him, she noticed in her peripheral vision that he immediately fell into step behind her, matching her pace perfectly. Not casually, but with intent. Her heart raced. She weighed her options. Keep walking and let him follow her into the store. Try a nearby bar, risking an unwanted interaction. Or turn back and run to her car. She decided the safest bet was to go inside. At least there would be light and people. She entered the store, quickly browsed for what she came for, and kept glancing back. The man had followed her in but wasn't shopping. He just stood at the front, not hiding the fact that he was watching her. Then he started making noises, soft, deliberate sounds, trying to get her attention. She whispered to the cashier, "Does that man work here? I think he followed me." The cashier didn't hear her at first, forcing her to repeat it louder, which made her feel exposed. The cashier finally went to the front and told the man to leave. He didn't. He stayed. The cashier went back, more assertive. And when the man claimed he didn't understand English, the cashier pulled out a baton and held it up, asking, "Do you understand this?" Only then did the man leave. The cashier assured her it was safe, pointed to a security monitor showing the lot was clear, and said he'd watch her walk to her car. But the moment she stepped outside, she saw him, not leaving, not walking away, but speed walking straight toward her driver's side door. She was driving a Corolla, which automatically locks when put in gear. So she was locked in, but still trapped in the parking space. She hit the gas hard, yanking the car out of the spot so violently it startled him, stopping him in his tracks just inches from her door. As she pulled away, she locked eyes with him and gave him the coldest, most intense stare she could muster, not out of anger, but strategy. She knew predators feed on fear, and she refused to show any. The stare worked. He turned and walked away, head down, defeated. She drove home in shock, overwhelmed with relief, and later, shame for being out so late alone. She told her boyfriend when he got home at 6 a.m., and he agreed it wasn't the smartest move. She's still in the same town, but she never leaves her house past 9 p.m. anymore. This story isn't about a break-in or a physical attack. It is about the quiet, calculated stalking that happens in plain sight, the kind of fear that lingers long after the car is locked, the doors are shut, and the lights are on. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people don't jump out of the dark. They walk beside you, wait for you, and follow you all the way to your car.